Hi. Well, thank you for attending. I started doing this to keep myself from going insane with the pandemic. So I think this is a really neat way to make some beautiful art that doesn't require years of mastery. And Flip Cup is probably the first one that I got good at. So, and it's probably one of the easier of the techniques. So I'm gonna start with this one. And then if you like it, we could always do some different techniques in the future. Okay. So first thing we have to do is we have to start by mixing your paints. So Katie, did you get any pre-pouring paint, or are you just using regular acrylic paint?
It just says it's acrylic paint. So
okay.
Like these little
Lauren,
tubes.
Okay, that's great. And Lauren, you too? Just regular acrylic paint?
Just regular acrylic paint, okay. And Janie as well.
Okay, great. Because if it wasn't, then we would skip this stuff. Okay. So, bye. Are you guys leaving? All right, my kids are leaving. All right, so usually I have about a 12 by 12 canvas, and I find you use a lot of paint for this technique. You're gonna wanna use, this looks like an 8-ounce cup, about that much paint for the Flip Cup technique. Otherwise, you're not gonna have enough paint, and it won't pull all the way to the sides, which, I mean, if you don't want it to pull to the side, the neat thing about this is a lot of it is subjective, and you get to decide to do what you like to do. But that way you'll have enough paint if you want to do that. And if not, you don't have to pull it all the way to the side. So let's start by, what we're going to do is get out as many cups as paint you want to mix. I would suggest you want to at least use 3 colors. Anything less than that, and it's not going to be exciting enough for you. So the thing we want to start with is, sorry, some of these haven't been open yet. So I'm going to actually I'm making a Ravens pour for my dad for his birthday. So I'm going to, start with your colors, and what you want to do is we're going to fill up about 1/4 of your cup with that color. And don't be worried if we don't make enough, we can always make more. Or if you make too much and you have extra canvas, you can always pour onto another canvas. It's not like these paints aren't savable. I actually pre-mix them for myself to make my life easier. So if you really like it, condiment containers are a really nice thing that you can do, and you can pre-mix it and then seal it. And then it will save it so that it doesn't dry out. Hold on one second, my kids didn't close the door. I'll be right back.
Carolyn, I had to run away and get more cups. Wait. So right now we're filling each cup up with our corresponding color.
Okay, so yeah, pick out your colors and you can fill them into each of the cup that you're gonna make. So
how much?
About 1/4 of that cup for about 8 ounces. So about 2 ounces. And it's never an exact science. That's kind of what I like. I'm not a good exact person. So don't.
What size canvas are you using?
It's 12 by 12. So it sounds like a lot of paint, but a lot of the poured acrylics is a lot of paint. So you end up pouring off some of it. And that's how I make some of the pretty jewelry that I make, is by using the pour offs. Are just as beautiful. So that's why whatever you're laying down, I would let it dry on that surface, even if you have to move it where kids aren't going to touch it, because you can use that later in some of your art. So it's definitely, nothing has to go to waste. So let me grab. Sometimes more does not equal better, but sometimes more does equal better too. So like I said, if your first pour is incredibly amazing, you're doing better than I ever did. Because it's a lot of a learning thing. And what is really neat, so here's the other thing. Your paints may mix. So sometimes when you're unsure of what it's going to look like together, you can take your paints on your protected surface. And I found, like, if you mix them with a little bit with your finger, you can see what that middle tone is going to look like. So for example, it is possible to do primary colors, but if you don't do it right, you're going to turn your pour is going to be brown because the 3 colors mix to brown. But sometimes when you're dealing with some of these interesting colors, you're never really fully sure what it's going to mix to. So sometimes it helps to know, okay, if I mix these 2 colors, I'm still going to like the color in the middle, because if you don't, you may end up with a brown piece, which isn't the most pleasing. But there are ways to get around that. You can thicken the paint some more, or you can put, a lot of people will layer colors in between, but those are like more as you're going along, you learn. Okay. So does everybody have their colors in their paint, in their cups?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So now we've got our glue all. There are other, so this is basically your pouring medium. This is what is allowing your paint to do the magical things that poured acrylics do. So one of the cheapest mediums is the glue all Elmer's paint. Hold on, that's my kids. Hold on. Be right back. So get your glue all out.
Oh my gosh, I forgot how weird glue smells.
Don't eat it.
So I don't know that I actually bought glue all. Is that a problem?
I don't think it should be a big problem. They were all telling me glue all. I don't see how it's any different. So just use your glue. We'll find out.
Carolyn, what about I have this gloss medium.
Gloss pouring medium, that's totally perfect. So
Okay.
yeah, that's perfect, Mike. And there are other ones. Floetrol is a really popular one. That's what I typically use. But I didn't want to make anyone go out and buy another product that they probably didn't have. But it's interesting. It produces slightly different results. So you're going to do about as much paint as you did. I want you to do glue. So it's going to be like a 50-50 here.
And we put it in the same cup as the corresponding
same
colors?
cup. Yep.
So like 75% of a cup with our medium.
Yeah, so you're probably gonna want, and you know, I might be a little shy here. You're gonna want a full amount. Your eventual color, we're gonna layer them on, is gonna go to 8 ounces. So all your paint together, we're gonna mix to a total of 8 ounces. Does that make sense? Sorry, it's interesting trying to explain it to other people. All right, and then when you've done that, let's get out some popsicle sticks. You can use other things, but I would highly recommend popsicle sticks. The flatness of them is helpful because it doesn't produce as much bubbles. You want to eliminate how many bubbles are produced when you're mixing them. All right, so then when you've got those two together, just slowly mix them together. But you want to mix them so that they're fully mixed, so you don't see any of the white glue or the Floetrol or the gloss medium. And the things that the gloss medium are doing is, you can do it without it, but your piece will probably crack. And so whenever new people are starting and they're telling you their piece is cracking, and that's what happened to me when I first started, is because you don't have a medium in there that's helping to keep the paint together, because the water is breaking down the paint. So now see how I have the same consistency? It lightens the paint color a little bit, but it will dry back to that original color. But you don't want to rigorously do it, because then you're putting a ton of bubbles in. And there is a solution for that, but I wasn't going to have everybody go buy a creme brulee torch for one class. If you like this, then
I have one.
Yeah, so you could grab that and have it out if you want to. That was the most intimidating thing for me. And I watched a YouTube video and I realized it's really not that big of a deal. But that is something that only moms and dads and adults are going to be doing. The kids cannot help with that part because it's dangerous. Okay, so let me know when everybody has their paints mixed. And so once again, see, you're not seeing, when you're stirring through it, you're not seeing any white of the glue. And I found that the popsicle sticks, I used to use chopsticks, but they didn't mix as well. It was a lot harder to do. The flatness of the thick popsicle sticks is definitely better.
I got paint on the side of the cup that I'm trying to get down.
Oh
and
yeah,
in.
yeah, you're gonna get it. Yeah, totally. Oh, and yeah, you're gonna get paint everywhere. So if you are wearing your favorite outfit, you might want to consider putting something on top. I mean, literally, it is messy. Like my floor now has paint all over it. The magic erasers really are wonderful. They will take it back up. It's a lot of work. Now I just lay down a ton of paper. You can also, some people buy find a big cardboard box. And if you look over here, I have my paint box. It's not large enough for like spinning, but that's another thing that you can do is find a big Tupperware. So you can put it in there, and then that way if it splatters everywhere, it doesn't really matter. All right, so is everyone finished mixing their paints?
Pretty much.
Okay, all right, so I'm gonna take you into the kitchen. So take your paints to a faucet. It's not tricky, but this is where it's a little subjective. I found at this point, I really put my water on a very slow like drip. Let me show you. How do I switch it around in here? Okay. So I'm putting it on, see how it's a very slow drip, and I just put it under the water for a few seconds. And each time then I gotta figure out how to pop this up. And then I'm mixing it. Because once you add too much water, then you have to go back and add extra paint and extra flow medium. But so I just go slowly. I'm going to add a little bit more, and I'll show you. This is the consistency of what we want to see. And once again, you want to just mix it at a slow, steady rate. I found the glue needs a little bit more water than like the Floetrol. The Floetrol is a little bit more flowy. Okay. But
How do we know if there's too much water?
I'll tell you. So this is the thing you want to see. See how it's stopping? That means I don't have enough water. So when you have too much water, it is going to be like sloshing around in there and like pouring off. People describe the consistency of like honey. I think that wasn't very helpful because I use a very thick honey. So I found that when it's in a straight line and it doesn't stop, then you know you're at a really good thing. But honestly, it's gonna work if it's a little thick, and it's gonna work if it's not thick enough too, for the flipped cup. There are other techniques like the butterfly pour. Like, you know, where you guys have seen me do the butterfly, that is like very particular about your consistency. That took a lot of like actually getting it right. See how it's going in a straight line when I stand it up? It's almost like a straight line.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the one.
Okay, I didn't have enough water in there.
Yeah, people say you're going to put probably the same amount of water as you do paint. I don't know exactly because I'm afraid to put it in all at once. You want a straight line, and it should be pretty runny. So it's almost going in straight. So I'm going to add it to the other one. You can put on your flow a little bit more, but I don't want you to add too much and then have to stick it back up, but you can. So, and the other thing is if you sit it in a container, it kind of thickens again. So sometimes I'll add back water. See, once again, there's like a delay, and that's not enough water. And you can have different thicknesses in your paint. So usually when people tell you their like recipe, it's a starting point. It depends on your medium, it depends on what you're doing. See how it's a straight line there? That's much better consistency. And if it's really runny, it just makes it a little bit harder to manage. Like, cause you want it at a consistency that it's going to move on the page for you, but not run off immediately. So when everyone's mixed them up, let me know. I've been trying these reusable gloves because I'm weird about wasting things, but I don't think they're as good. But the other ones, I tear like crazy. So they're just grip is not as good. Like they're slidier. I don't like them as much. I think the disposable are better. But I hate wasting things if I don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not good for the environment, so I try to avoid it if I can. And if I'm like using a pair of gloves every single time, I felt like I should try to find something else. You don't have to use gloves, but I would recommend it because it could take you a very long time to get all the paint off. And like it gets all over my Apple Watch and my phone. It's really gross.
Get those gloves.
Oh man, my favorite part.
It's funny too when you start doing it. William's like, I'm gonna do a pour for you. I'm gonna be really amazing at it. And I'm like, okay, have fun with that. And he's like, this is what I'm doing. And I'm like, well, this is my suggestion after learning. He's like, oh no, I'm gonna do it. I'm like, can't wait to see you. Can't wait to see that happen. Because it's like you make these assumptions and things are harder than they seem sometimes. It's interesting. And cheers to everyone. I'm having my Greyhound here.
Yeah, there you go.
What would you call it if it's a Greyhound with a splash of club soda? Is it still a Greyhound?
It's still a Greyhound.
Okay. I love it.
Greyhounds
So
are
delicious.
delicious.
They're so delicious. It like really cuts the vodka.
You should try using grapefruit soda instead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I started doing that because my health coach was recommending it, like the vodka being a lower calorie thing. And I was originally doing like lime juice and lemon juice with the club soda because I think the club soda holds the carbonation better for longer than like the sparkling stuff. It just goes flat really fast. And and then I was like, oh, I'm gonna change it up with some grapefruit juice.
What is
I
that?
love
Is
that.
that drink named as because it's something you can bring on a Greyhound bus? Is that?
I don't know why it's called that. I just
I
remember
actually
learning
don't
about
know
it.
why it's called that either.
I learned it was one of the artists I like growing up mentioned it, and I ended up looking it up, and I'm like, that sounds like a great drink. And I tried it, and I liked it. I have to think of who it was. I really liked his stuff. One of the
I
first.
do think its origin came because it was a popular drink in the 1940s at the Greyhound bus terminals, but I would have to check out.
It's really interesting to hear like the origins of drinks.
It's so funny.
I think I'm glad that we're getting excitement for some of the old drinks again because they're really cool.
Yes.
Like for a
I
while,
agree.
I think, once the Moscow Mules and stuff hit, people started like re-exploring more traditional drinks.
I love a good Moscow Mule.
Yeah, it can be really good. I do think the cup makes a difference. So
Can I ask for the respective cups we're using at this point? Should the volume be about like in between a third and a half of the cup?
So like you're using 3 or 4 colors, I would say absolutely.
Okay.
So I'm gonna use a bunch of colors and I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna do. So when everybody's got their stuff mixed up, just let me know and then we'll move on.
I feel good
And that-
about two of my colors. I think one of them might be too runny.
It's okay. I mean, like, honestly, it's almost impossible to make it too runny. The other paints will help hold it in too. Does that make sense? It might
Yeah.
make it more interesting if one's runnier. Like sometimes I make my background color a little less runny because it kind of holds it a little more. If your background color is really runny, it's kind of like runny eggs. It will like slide off your stuff if your eggs are really loose. But then you can just tilt, you just kind of account it. I really think unless you did more water than paint, you're probably okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know if you want to take a look at
Yeah,
this.
can we,
Like-
how do I figure out how to see him? Participants, okay. Your mic, okay.
Hang on.
Oh, wait, no.
Yeah, so this is my green.
How do I, hold on, let me. Lauren, how do I see him?
See
Nope.
who? Oh, you
See
can't
my-
see him?
No, I can't.
Are you on your phone?
I am
Swipe to the right, to the left.
to the left. So like
Please.
slide,
See everybody now? No? I think you're muted now. Oh, okay, you can see it. But you're on mute now. There's a microphone at the bottom left.
I
that you
got
can
it, I
click
got
to unmute yourself. There you go.
okay, show me again, Mike.
Yeah, so this is this is my
Okay,
green.
so lift up your fork.
Yeah.
Nope, that's perfect.
Okay.
You're really good. That's a really good consistency. That's
All
what you're looking for. Like it almost strings right off. Like you can't even tell it's a liquid. All right. So now we're gonna like layer our cup. So this is all up to you. Have fun with however you want to do it. So you take your 3 or more colors and start with your whatever color you want to do first. I'm going to start with white, and you just kind of put it at the bottom, like set. It's going to be your base color. I think this is going to come out last. It's also hard to fully say, as somebody was saying in our group, it's with the luck of the poor. It's a good lesson in letting go because you don't have full control over it. But as a result of that, sometimes it's incredible.
I
So
am
now the other
terrified
thing
and
is-
excited.
So here's some ways you can do it. So some people pour their next color on the side and then let it go in a circle. That's a way of doing it. Your ultimate goal is you don't want the paint to just sink down to the bottom. You want it to stay on top. But sometimes you do want to sink down to the bottom. Here's another way you can do it with your paints. Is you can just gently go, this one's not mixed up enough. If it starts to separate, then just shake it up. Okay. So you can layer it like gently back and forth. And then see how it kind of has this drizzled pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So have at it, go however you want. And then
So
you
the
keep
last
working.
color we put is the one that will be directly on the canvas, correct?
I think so.
Okay.
It's also going to shift around, but you keep repeating. So I have found though, this is my experience, that so I'm predominantly doing a purple pour here for me. That if you do all the same identical colors, you're not going to be able to tell the difference between them. It's going to be very subtle.
Okay.
So I found that you may want to alternate if you have similar colors with the colors, like the biggest variation. So you might want to do like a light purple and then a dark purple and then back to a light purple or a dark purple and then back to something lighter, just so that when it's coming onto the canvas, you can actually tell that you have more than one color. Especially blues are like that. Blues, I have a hard time with blues. I haven't figured out what it is exactly. It's probably the pigment of the blues. that, and also the brands that vary. And then I would say the same thing with your metallics colors. If you're going to use a metallic, you don't need to use a ton of it, because unless you do it in the beginning or the end, it can sometimes get lost.
Okay.
And usually it's your most expensive one. So I would try using it like 3 or 4 times. And a little bit is going to go a long way. And then make sure your metallic colors on the top.
Okay.
And then maybe even consider it could be next time you pour on the bottom too, so that it really shines out. And this is a great way for your kid to make some of the decisions too, so they can decide. And so another thing you can do if you're pouring out of a cup is you can pinch the cup to have a little bit more control. And so once again, if say it's like this was a little bit more of a different consistency, so I can pour straight down onto the side, so it doesn't just sink down into the bottom. These are another type of cup. If you really get into this, these are the resin cups. I love them. So like you can put them inside and out. So they're for resin, but they're really great for acrylic pours too. And they're nice and gummy. So if you end up really liking it, I highly recommend getting a few of these because they're really easy to wash. And then you can easily pour your colors from them well too. So they're like a nice, I was saying earlier, I like to reuse things. I mean, you can do these, eventually you'll break these cups and you won't be able to use them forever, but it's no point in spending money on something if you're like, I don't even know if I like this yet.
Oh my gosh, I'm making such a mess.
So fully expect that. That is very normal. That we laugh about that in our group, about how it fully takes over your house. You really do almost need, like, outside is probably a good idea too. And then here's another thing I found too, with your whites and blacks can sometimes help lighten up a piece. So if you know me, you know I like black a lot, but sometimes if you're looking for a certain look, all black doesn't always make a good pour. And like, for example, too, is I'm trying to do kind of a Ravens purple. Choosing some blues in there isn't a bad idea because it's kind of going to mix with the purples a little bit and pop your purple a little bit more. And so keep going until you're about at 8 ounces. So it's going to be almost a full cup.
So are we doing a new cup of new colors?
Yeah.
Separate from
So you're mixing all your colors together into another cup.
Okay.
So this is where your pour comes from.
Okay.
So you're kind of mixing them around, but you don't want to. Some people can take a stir straw and will do like a little mix. I wouldn't recommend that. When you pour it onto your surface, it's going to do a lot of mixing there.
All right. So if we have 3 colors, these 3 colors are going into our.
Yeah, and then
new
just
cup.
alternate them in an order that
Okay.
is to your pleasing.
Okay. Nice.
It's a fun part, and kids are great at this.
I'm terrified to see what happened. I made a mistake, but I think I can redeem myself, so we'll see.
Honestly, the only mistakes that I have not been able to redeem are when you touch it and it's not fully dry. Or something falls into it. So whenever you lay it down to dry, don't make the mistake and let kids run through that area.
That's fair.
That happened to one of my pieces. I'm like, no. Or if you don't use a pour medium and then it cracks. And there's really no coming back from that.
Okay. I might put some unmixed white in my new color cup.
Okay, so mix it up then, because you don't want to put just straight white, because I did that once because I was like, let's see what happens, and then you end up with chunks.
Gotcha.
And it doesn't look pretty. Because I was like, I'm gonna just try leaving it the regular thickness, and you're like, okay, now I see why I can't do that. That's the nice thing about this, is that by learning, is you make the mistakes and then you can figure out how to recover. And the way it looks when you first pour it is not going to be the way it looks when you're finished. So don't get disappointed, because there's lots of ways that you can change it.
Nice. And that's
But
like
a
where the
lot of
straw
it is
comes in.
figuring out when you're finished too.
That's when the straw comes in, right?
Yeah, the straw is like your best friend, because you're like, ugh, I don't really like this. You can totally change it for the better. So straw has saved me many a times. And you know what? If you really hate it, you can always re-pour over it. You just let it dry. I've done that too, where you're like, that really just didn't turn out. Like those colors mixed in a gross way and it doesn't look good. It's not over just because you don't like it. You can always reuse the canvas. Or people do different things to it. Maybe they'll paint something over top of portions they don't like. But there's some really cool, I mean, even Instagram, some people take pictures where I'm like, their stuff is just freaking incredible.
That's
So if you ever need to be inspired, you know, checking out the tags of the Instagram pouring. Some people, and you know, I was talking to one of them and I'm like, your stuff is always so beautiful. And she's like, you just don't see all the stuff that doesn't look good. I only share the stuff that looks good. So, because I said, you know, it's one day I hope to be able to produce all great pours. So just because you only see the beautiful stuff doesn't mean that person isn't making things that aren't yucky too. They're just smart and they don't share their mess ups. So while we're doing this, there's something else I wanted to talk about. So if you want, guys end up wanting to do another class about more complex pours, there's things called silicone oil. And if you ever see some of the pours where there was swiping pours, you can add a drop of silicone oil into them and it will actually produce these things called cells, and they look kind of like bubbles. That's really fun too, because that's when you definitely want to have a torch. And that's a really neat technique. It's a little bit harder, but it's so pretty. And a little bit goes a long way. So you literally only want 1 to 2 drops of silicone, but I was like, I'm not going to ask everybody to buy a whole bottle of this for the beginning. But that's a fun one to do. I really, and it almost always produces really cool stuff. What I like about this art is you don't have to be artistic to do this. It's just about learning your medium. I'm always somebody that says anyone can be artistic if you just figure out the right way. And it's neat for kids too, because they can express themselves with art. So sometimes you could, as children, you could use angry pours or happy pours, you know, you could pick your colors based on that, or even your motions. We're going to show you later. You can manipulate it based on your emotion too, which is really neat. It's neat to see what my kids come up with. I'm always amazed, or when they get to pick my colors for me.
You're like, oh, how are you feeling today?
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool way of being able to express yourself, even for a kid who maybe struggles with expressing themselves artistically. And surprisingly, a lot of guys do this too. Because, you know, some guys shy away from some artistic things. There's a lot of guys that pour, which is really neat. And it's very popular throughout the world too. A lot of the people I follow are from all over the country.
I love that.
And all over the globe.
It looks so cool.
I know, I like to take a picture of just the cup.
Yeah, I'm doing that right now.
Yeah.
And then take a picture after you pour, because the cup always looks incredible too. It's
Oh, nice.
an art unto itself. And then I have baby condiment containers for like some of the more expensive paints that you don't necessarily want to produce a big bottle of. You can get these little ones, which is fun, like some of the metallic ones. But if you're interested in it, my dad bought me a whole bunch of Dick Blick paints, and they're really nice. They have a lot of like vibrant neon colors that are really neat. And they're actually really affordable. So a big container of it is like $5. And then once you mix it all, you really cut down on the cost. So if there are like I originally, when I was trying it out, bought pre-poured paints, but they really only last about two pours a container. But once again, you can keep a lot of the little containers. So if you mix up the paints again yourself, you have somewhere to put it. Because if you're going to try to do this, it gets annoying to mix your paints every single time. And then that way you can save some of them for the colors you regularly use. But making your own paints definitely cuts down on the cost of it. And other brands people like are, some people have recommended the Amsterdam brand. Some artists really like those. We talked about the Arteza paints. I really like these, produce a lot of cells when you use the silicone or even without the silicone. Sargent Art has these cool metallic colors that William got me for Yule. Oh, these are cool. William found these folk art. They're like color changing, color shifters.
Ooh.
So they come in like, this one's blue and purple, which is really neat. And here, like, you can get a slightly larger size. This one's like a blue and purple too. They're neat to add just like a little bit of, to kind of make it a little more exciting.
Are they metallic as well, or they're just two different colors?
Yeah, they're metallic.
Oh, nice.
So really neat. I like to have at least one metallic color in everything. You can, I mean, you can do it without, but I think it really adds to it. You can really see that after you pour it.
So I'm wondering if I can redeem myself because I made a boo-boo. So I poured my two colors into my one color cup and then realized soon after that I messed up. But I feel like at the end,
pour that out. So don't throw it away. Take that and pour it like it's its own color.
Well, like I had the one color in here and then I put my other two in here.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, so maybe make up one other color and then pour it into a third cup and treat that mixed color like it's its own color. So you can take you could take a popsicle stick and just pull the paint up and then drizzle it.
Okay.
So you're not mixing the color, and try it. It will be a good learning experience.
Oh, this is actually kind of trippy.
Yeah, so you'll end up with, I would try to do the least amount of mixing you can.
More dipping, right?
Yeah. So here are other things too while you guys are mixing. So people do like drain pours where they'll buy cheap drains and then you can put it on your canvas and it will come out at various times. And then there's also, Brandon 3D printed me some pouring cups. So you can put your colors in there. And then you get things like tree ring pours where you'll get a pattern that will go. Those look really cool and really trippy. So those are other things that people do. Giving me serious
Soul Train vibes over here.
I know. Yeah, I don't. You'd have to try it not sober one time and see how it goes. But don't use your torch. So, okay, if you're finished mixing your paint, the next thing you can do, and I don't want to rush anybody, is choose what your background color is going to be. So you're going to want to mix up a bit of this. I'll show you about how much. I'm going to use white as my background color. So this is where it's going to start getting messy. So be forewarned, but let me just make sure. So when you're doing it, put about a bit in the middle like that. You can use all sorts of things. You can use your hand. You can use a popsicle stick. You can use the, I forget this name of this thing. I like these are really nice where you just are spreading it around on your canvas. It doesn't have to be beautiful, but you're just kind of spreading it around. And the thickness that you want, it took a long time for me to learn how to spread it out, where you don't want to lift back off. Here, I'm going to try it. You don't want to lift off the paint. You want to kind of leave it very gently, a little bit of paint on there, because if you think about it, you're taking a liquid and you're floating it on top of another liquid. So you're going to cover your whole surface just so that there's some liquid there that when you pour, it has somewhere to go. So this, you're never really going to see this paint again. So it doesn't matter whether it's beautiful or not. And then say you have a corner that you don't have enough paint on, just put a little bit of paint on.
This is really for increased surface area then?
Exactly. So basically you're just, it's so the paint has somewhere to move. If you don't put the paint down, it won't go anywhere.
Okay.
Or if it's not thick enough, you want to have, it's like icing a cake. So you want to, you don't want to see the canvas underneath, but you don't necessarily want to put on too much because it will be a waste.
Yeah.
You're just wasting paint then. So it's just enough so that your paint, your flip cup has somewhere to go. And something I should have told you before is if you want to keep the back of your canvas cleaner, and I always forget about this until after I do it, is you can use some painter's tape and just tape the back. I usually would recommend doing that, but I always forget about it. So next time you can just tape the back of the surface because it's going to pour onto the sides, which looks pretty. Unless you don't want that. So this is when they talk about preparing the canvas. And if anyone, William actually bought me some cool pouring books that talk about a lot of the different techniques. So if you're interested, I can share pouring groups that I'm in, or I can share certain artists I follow on YouTube, or I can share the books that I have. It's just kind of relaxing to do and watch. I usually, when I was trying to figure out a technique, I would watch somebody do it first. Oh, and sorry, did I say grab a roll of paper towels just in case? Just probably want it near. Never a bad idea. Remember, I'm gonna fill up my, okay, so, well, you can just listen to, a thing I was very anxious about is the creme brulee torch, because that just seemed very intimidating to me. It is so easy to use. So you buy a torch, this one was like 20 bucks, and then you have to buy a container of the butane fuel. The key is I would buy one with a gauge, because you really don't know how much is in there if you don't. Because they're both very light, so it's hard to gauge. What you want to do is there's this dispenser down at the bottom, and the top basically looks like if you take the hairspray can off and you basically put it upside down and then just push it down until you hear the fuel for 3 seconds. So 1, 2, 3, and now you have filled up your butane. And it takes a little while, and then you'll slowly start to see the fuel will come up. But that really scared me because I was afraid of setting my house on fire. I would also recommend getting one, and I don't know if they sell them without it, but one that has a lock. So you have to disengage it so you don't accidentally leave it on, especially since a lot of us have kids. And so then when you're finished, see how much paint I have? I have almost my entire cup is full of paint. And the sides are really pretty too. And another thing you could do too is if you're learning and you really like doing this, I film myself doing it. And the reason I do that is you never know how it's going to turn out. But then if you do a lot of this, you also forget what you did. So by filming it, it really helps you to say, okay, what did I do there? How did I produce the results I liked? If you film each of them, then you can go back and see what you did to try to replicate it. And I think that's really been helpful for me. I'm going to take a picture of my cup.
So Carolyn, when you put that white down as a background, that was a white mixed with a medium and some water.
Yeah,
right?
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear about that. Yep.
No, I got you.
And then if you are going to use a torch, so the torch is to remove the bubbles. So I'll show you because this also made me nervous in case it does for anybody else. So there's a tab here to disengage the lock. You just twist it until you hear the fuel, press the thing, and then swipe it back and forth. You want to be careful though, and this just kills your bubbles. You can cook your paint. Some people like that. They're going for that look. I've also kind of semi-ruined my stuff by cooking my paint, so be careful not to leave it on there for too long. Here's another thing too, is if you find like somehow I got a fleck of something in my paint, just take your popsicle stick or your, what is this called again? I'm blanking on it. There's an art term for it. I don't know. But take it and then you can just, is it?
That's what I've called it in every other art class.
Is it? Okay. There's an art term for it. But yeah, basically your art spatula. And you just pop up something that like you can get dust in there really easy, my house, and then just pop it out. If you get hair in there, if you don't get it out while it's wet, I had a really beautiful piece that I made and then a staple fell in it. And heartbreaking. So I had to try to repair it. I think I semi did, but I will forever see the staple spot. I don't know if
Carolyn,
other people will.
it's actually a palette knife.
That's it. I knew it. I was like, there's a name for it. I can't think of what it is.
Well, but if you Google, right? So
Yep.
literally art spatula,
Yeah.
that's what it comes up as. So
I forget what they call these, but I think these are really helpful. I think they're the easiest of them all to use. I had a hard time finding out what they were called too, but if somebody's interested, I think it's basically for cakes.
Oh, like shaving some of the frosting off.
yeah,
Yeah, like for shaving it and spreading it on. Exactly.
That's Molly's friend Carolyn.
Hi, Carolyn.
Hi.
Gabby.
I'm used to talking to people like you all day long.
Yeah, Miss Carolyn has a daycare. That's how I know.
Yeah.
She has a daycare at her house.
I've actually taught the little kids how to pour, but I have
That's
to do it one at a time because it's messy. Otherwise you end up with little footprints all throughout the house. But I think it'd be neat if I had if you had a big art space to teach multiple kids how to pour. So maybe after the pandemic. There is a space in downtown Ellicott City, Live Unusually has an art space. And they took some of my pieces. So I think I'm gonna approach the owner and see if he'd let me teach a kids paint pouring class.
Yeah.
I think that would be fun.
I started expanding her art over the pandemic basically by I found a guy in California who does lives,
Ooh.
and it's really cool
Yeah.
because she's able to create also. Like
Yeah.
saw me doing it and wanted to do it, so I couldn't
Yeah.
wait to get her in the next one. It was fun.
It's neat. My kids do the same thing where they started drawing because they watched how-to videos, and now my wall is full of different types of like anime paintings and pictures.
Yeah.
But that's how I learned how to do art too. Is my dad would make sure we had supplies, and then you would just have at it, and you would try different things. And I mean, you really, as my dad said, he went to art school, and he's like, all artists are self-taught because you can't learn everything.
I'm self-taught with almost everything.
Yeah, me too. Even if somebody teaches you how to do it, there's still details they're going to miss, or you may encounter a problem that they have not. And like a lot of, so in our, I know you're in some of the groups too, some of the different countries don't have access to all the different supplies like we do. So they have to find workarounds. And so like,
That
we're
was
really lucky. Apparently
Yeah.
the Australian Floetrol is the way to go, but you can't get your hands on it here.
You can't get it. Yeah.
I find with the artisan paint, you don't need it. You don't even need the silicone oil. It
Really?
is, yeah. If you put just one of those colors in there, it sells like crazy.
Really? I'm gonna have to try that then. That's not one that I've actually tried before.
Yeah, I love them.
I've done, well, I mean, what we're doing today is like the Craft Smart and stuff like that.
I would check out Dick Blick. Their stuff is super cheap, and they're just basic acrylics have turned out really beautiful.
Is that who you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, so it's an online art store, and they do a lot of discounts, and they'll ship it to you. So my dad was like, I'm going to send you some art supplies. So I'm like thinking, okay, he's going to send me a few colors. He sent me like $400 worth of art supplies. I was like,
oh,
wow,
cool.
This is awesome.
Have you tried out, so my, one of my oldest friends actually does art. We have some of his art here in the house. And we're always, you know, talking back and forth because we're both artists. And he was like, I told him, I found out about Jerry's Artorama.com.
I haven't heard of it.
Okay, so look on there because their prices were compared to what I'm used to buying at like Michael's and stuff like that, like really good, especially for canvases and stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean that in the very beginning, I'd constantly be running out. So I just ended up buying, now my kids are like, you cannot buy any more canvases ever. Because I was like, I want to have enough. So if I want to do it, because sometimes too, I have found, sometimes you'll pour enough for one piece, but sometimes you'll have too much. And so having an extra canvas nearby is never a bad thing in case you don't, because if you save it in the cups, it doesn't save as well as if you have a top. Even if you saran it, I found the, if you really want to save it, those Talenti gelato containers are amazing for saving the art. Yeah, we eat a lot of that. So I have hundreds of them, but they're really good for saving paint.
But I may just start eating a lot of that.
Yeah, so save those and pour your extra paint in there. But I like the condiment a lot because then you don't have to even put it in a cup and you can distribute it straight from it. And they're like, you can get 9 for like a cup for $7. So I mean, they're not even $1 a bottle. The annoying thing though is the little tops. They get lost very easily.
Well,
so maybe it's worth getting the ones that have the attached lids.
I'm reusing this one.
That's what I've done too, where I really like these containers because the first time I did it, I was like, I want to try it, but I don't want to buy all the Floetrol. So I bought the pre-done ones and they were great. They produce really vibrant colors, but they're just not at a price that you could keep going and actually make a profit.
Yeah. So. Mine's all for fun. This is relaxation. So I mean, I'm actually going to. I got my chain. Thank you very much. So, so that's what I'm actually going to branch out today. So,
woohoo. All right. So does everybody have their paint on their canvas and their paint in their cup? Yep. because we're getting to the fun part. Okay. All right, so there are multiple ways to flip. Your kid can help you with this if you really trust them. So you can do two things. So you can take your canvas and upside down and put your paint on it and flip, or you can literally go 1, 2, 3 and pop it upside down onto your thing. So it depends on how adventurous you are. If you're not very adventurous, do it upside down. If you are adventurous, then you're just gonna flip it and then leave it. Don't lift it up at that point. All right, I'm gonna be adventurous. All right, this always makes me super nervous. All right, 1, 2, 3, and try to get it semi-middle. Let me know when everybody's there. All right. Sorry, it's like something making a really annoyingly loud buzzing noise. There we go. Oh, and another thing to warn you that I learned the hard way, if you have a long ponytail, you probably want to tie your hair back because it's really annoying if you get acrylic paint in your hair. Because I've done that a lot. It doesn't wash out so easy. And you'll end up getting swipes that you didn't expect to have. All right, so now if you just lift it off, it's gonna go everywhere. So what I find is you kind of got a suction motion here, is that I lift up little corners at a bit. So watch me do it as I'm doing it, where you're like little bits at a time, and then you kind of let it go. Maybe do a little bit over here, let it go. Same thing over here. Because you're also essentially mixing the paint a little bit while you're doing this. And it's gonna have like a suction, and then let it flow a little bit, and then you can kind of lift off the rest. Be careful, if you drip into this, it's going to make a pattern. You may want to do that. But here is an example of how pretty the cups are. Isn't that really pretty? I just love looking at the art in the cups. That's very exciting to me. Okay. And then leave your paint when you're there. And then this is the true exciting part of this.
Ooh, this is cool.
Isn't that pretty? So I would take a picture as you're going to, if you can, because it's neat to see the way it changes. So this is where the skill comes in. If you turn your canvas too far one way or the other, it's going to flow right off. So it took a lot of time of practice where you just kind of lift it up level, and you decide the parts that you like about the piece. So if there's a part that you like, you're slowly like stretching it, and see how the tilt is very slight. Now, I would recommend trying to go off the sides, because that is where it really gets beautiful, is if you fill the entire canvas. So like I slowly come to each corner, but you want to go really slow, because you'll lose and mix your paint a lot. So you almost come to the side that you want and then pull it back into the middle. And then you want to stretch it to a different corner. And this is where you're going to get really messy. Kids are really good. Like, you'd be surprised at how my kids make excellent pours. So if you need somebody to consult with, they often have a really good sense of taste too, which is neat. And then you're slowly, and I mean, take your time, because this is the exciting part of it, is that it kind of unfolds in front of you. There are other things you can do. You can spin your piece. I wouldn't recommend doing that right now, but you can get Lazy Susan, and you can spin your piece. Once we've filled the entire canvas, then we can talk about other things you can do if you want to do additional things. So once again, I'm coming to my corner. It's coming to the side, and then you're kind of pulling it back. And it's kind of stretching out that color. And that's when you're seeing the diversity of colors that you've laid down too. And the neat thing is your colors are layered. So you're seeing your colors shine through each other, which is really neat.
I'm
I really like
obsessed with this.
corner. It's so much fun. It's so relaxing to do. And it's like
I like your
an
colors too.
adventure every time. You never know what you're going to get. You don't have full control over it. So I like that corner a lot. So I really want to stretch it back. And you're almost coming to center every time. So I really like that top corner. So I want to kind of pull it down to get more of it. And I'm not as big of a fan of the big white blob over there. So you can kind of pull it over there. And so now you want to fill that last corner. Kind of stretch it out. So this is the first time I actually used Floetrol and glue, like different ones. So we'll see how that goes. I've never used different pouring mediums. I'm an experimenter. I like to mess around with things because a lot of I would imagine poured acrylics was somebody kind of thought about this. All right, and then when you're at the point where you filled your whole canvas and you generally like what's going on with it, then lay it back down and we can talk about other things you can do to make it even more exciting. So like my white here, I'm not a big fan of, but I really like this section. So I'm gonna kind of leave this section and then mess around with this because I just don't like, sometimes the white and blacks are really awesome and sometimes they're just kind of too much. And then you can also take your palette knife and you can scrape up the sides to fill any of the white spots that you've got left. A lot of artists do this.
Hey, Carolyn, just to get your opinion, you see how I don't know if you can see mine. You see how these two
it's
corners,
so pretty.
I wasn't
I
able
love
to
it.
pour all the way out. I kind of like the way this looks. Can I leave it like this and use the straw or should I continue to pour?
I would pull it a little bit and then pull it back to center quickly. So you don't want to pull it too
Okay.
long. You'll be able to pull that
Okay.
right back into the middle. It's really pretty. I love those colors. Good job. My first pour was not that exciting.
I've been watching your videos a lot, learn from the best.
That's it's so fun to do. When everyone's like, I'm miserable in this pandemic, I'm like, I'm having a great time in this pandemic. Because I'm entertaining myself. But see the drippings you have on your paper. If you don't end up using them for your sides, that they make really beautiful art for jewelry, or
nice.
you could even collage them for something separate. That's really, I find that incredibly fun to do. And for the future, if you really are into this, I actually find the metal straw is easier for me. I think the heaviness of it, I didn't recommend buying that because there's no point to your first time. But if you do like it, I would highly recommend like the stainless steel one over a plastic one. I think the weight helps. And I actually have a bend in mine, which I find is really helpful because you can kind of still stand upright and move it around. All right, so I'm gonna go into like, if you wanna use a straw, other things you can do is you could use your palette knife and you could make swirls. So you could say you really like a section, you can take it and make a swirl in there. Say it's too finished looking for you, you can move it. So it will move in a different way. So it doesn't look so intentional. You can shift it around a little bit. Other things you can do are, and this is where, this is you coming out, is you can take your straw and you kind of, and this is the key with this. Don't blow too hard. Otherwise you're just mixing your colors and it's going to get really muddy. You want to go really gently, and you can always blow harder, but it's hard to, you can't unblow what you mixed. So I like just like kind of blow really slow and then make it wavy. And you'll see how it is. Like you can get the colors to shine underneath by going really gently. It's in a way like you're drawing in it, which is fun. And the nice thing about this is sometimes what's really neat is there's colors underneath all of these colors. You just have no idea what they are until you use your straw, and then you find out what they are. So I kind of fish around to see what colors are where. So like my blue here actually has white and purple underneath, which is kind of really neat. And if you're seeing, so there are little bits of cells that I have here, you can accentuate them by just blowing straight down on them. And you can make them bigger, which is neat. And if you don't like anything, once again, you can shift it around to make it look less intentional, which is also fun. So it's never really, it's hard to truly ruin a pour, I think.
All right, so I'm actually kind of cute with the way Gabby's turned out, and I did let her do the chain pull on hers.
Oh, cool.
So here's
Awesome.
hers.
Okay. Ooh, I love it.
Okay, so
That's
here's
beautiful.
mine.
Oh,
And
I
this is
love
what
it.
mine normally does. And you're right, it's the amount of paint that I've got on there. You're
Yeah.
absolutely
Sometimes,
so-
yeah, like the problem is if you, when I do like the chain pull, what we're talking about, the butterfly chain pull technique, is you almost want as little paint on there as possible, just enough so you can push it around. But if you have too much paint, it just puddles up and then you don't get the pull through it. So, and I also found you want a little bit of a thicker consistency for a chain pull so that you can move. I almost put like the least amount of paint on there you can put on, like with your finger, and then just so slowly pull it. And it took a lot of messing around with it to do that. And
Cool,
you know, also Anita told me too, is like with the butterfly, you want to make sure you're pulling in the same direction on each side to get a similar look. And I forget that all the time. So my wings look like lopsided. But I just practiced with it, and you can use the same piece. And what I've done is if I didn't like it, I scrape it. That's another thing, is say you hate it, you can literally take your thing and scrape it off. And sometimes you produce really pretty things by scraping it too. So I don't really feel like it's ever a loss.
Yeah.
You know, you just have to mess around with it more. You're just not finished with it. But once it dries, you can't really manipulate it. So you have a limited amount of time.
Yeah.
So you want to, when you walk away from it, you want to like it, because you really don't have a lot of time to fix it at that point, other than just to pour over top of it.
Yeah, no, this was a blast.
Thank you.
I enjoy doing it with Gabby too. And I know she enjoys it. She just doesn't have the patience.
It is. My kids don't. You know what I would recommend too is canvases are expensive. They have canvas panels, which are really great for my kids. That's what I've been letting them use, because then they can mess with it out a ton.
What we got her is, we were in Joann's. I had to stop and get some glue. And so we were in Joann's, and they have those little easels, the display pieces where so that's what hers is, actually one of the little rectangle pieces. Yeah. And she has an easel, and now she's like, can I put it on there? I'm like, no, it's gotta dry.
Dry. Yeah. That would be interesting.
Can I put it on here?
Then we'll put it on there. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone has to send me a picture, please, because I'd love to see like close-ups of everybody's.
I've been taking pictures this whole time because, like I said,
Awesome.
it's fun for me, and
Mine's
I dabbled
finally
before,
done.
but
And
it's
then
just been.
if you like it, leave it. Like, don't mess with it. Sometimes I've poured it and I've been like, it's so beautiful. I'm not messing with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. The colors we picked, and this is something I forget a lot, and I use in the same color on the color wheel, like the opposite colors, because that's what
Yeah.
my eye is drawn to, and then it
Me too.
immediately just becomes mud, and I'm like,
Exactly.
well, so you
I know
actually
you
talking
do
about the
need to think
different
about
colors?
what they're going to mix into.
Yeah. So you talking about the colors in the beginning, and I was like, oh no, because we had like this, we have a deep purple and a blue, and we had a big
Yes.
navy blue. And I'm like, you said that. And I went, Gabby, we're going to have to use this teal. And that teal has turned out amazing.
Yeah, you can choose a slight similar color that makes a big difference. And sometimes I will literally take them and mix them with my finger. Hi. And see what they look like, because I'm like, I'm not totally sure what they're going to look like. And then that way you're like, okay, that looks awful together. I do the same thing where my eyes are drawn to like opposite colors, and sometimes they mix into like not very pretty colors at all. So cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to run.
Thank you for
send the
joining.
pictures later. No,
Awesome.
I'm sorry. I thought it was at 3:30 for some reason.
Oh,
So, you
no
know,
worries.
I'm thinking we
I
got
was
home
just
at like
talking about
3.
mixing them. You didn't need to hear any of the mixing because you pretty much know all that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Actually, I did thicker colors because I like the thicker colors.
Yeah,
Like
I do too. I like it when it's a
so
little
I
bit
didn't add
thicker.
water. I only added the
it's-
glue.
Yeah, if you add too much water, it runs right off. I think you don't have as much control. Sometimes I will, but not usually. I like it a little bit thicker too, because I feel like then it doesn't slide right off I've done that by accident. You're like, oh, damn.
Yeah. Well, I've been watching the ones I watch on YouTube, and like they're beautiful pieces, and it looks like the paint is just like easily ebbing and flowing off of it. And I'm like, what is your mix? Like, how are you doing that? Because
Some of them
I
will
never
share. Yeah, the one I shared with you is the mixed media girl. I mean, she'll totally answer any questions. She's awesome. I really like her, and her husband too. They do cool stuff. So it's nice when they will share their secret with you.
Yes, when they're not well, and it's like it's not proprietary, but I guess for an artist, it kind of is.
Yeah, a lot of people are totally willing to share. Like, and it also depends on your supplies too. So the glue needs more water, I think, than say the Floetrol. The Floetrol needs almost no water because it's pretty much in there already.
Yeah, I've never done the Floetrol. I've never used it. I've done the glue.
Really like it.
I've done the oil. I've done that one because I happen to have it here. So
well, if we ever can see each other again, I'll put some Floetrol in a bottle for you. It's really great.
Oh, cool, thanks.
Yeah.
But I have heard about the Australian Floetrol. Like, we can't get that stuff, the good stuff.
I know. If anyone's ever in Australia, you gotta.
I know.